Welcome back, everyone. It's been a while since my last review. Today I'm looking at a Squire Classic Vibe Telecaster. This guitar was purchased not too long ago, and I think I'm about ready to give you my opinion on it. I want to say right up front that this review is going to be a description only. There will be no playing in this video, so if you're looking for samples of the tone, you're going to have to wait for my follow-up video or click on another video. Right now I'm going to give you some insight on why I think this guitar is one of the best deals out there currently. I purchased this guitar a little while ago when I was in the market for a Telecaster. I haven't owned a Telecaster before, so I thought that before I go out and spend $2,000 for an American-made reissue, I'd look around to see what my options were. So I stumbled on the Squire Classic Vibe series, and at about under $400, I thought that it looked quite interesting. The price was right for me. So I started playing the guitar in the store, and I tried to find some issues with it that would, make me change my mind and buy something else. But I couldn't find anything wrong with this guitar. Honestly, at that price point, and I looked pretty hard, I did not find any issues. So I bought it. And it's been a couple of weeks now that I've owned this guitar, and I've had an opportunity to play it live with a band situation and at home to really get a feel for it. And I mean, you don't really understand what the advantage or disadvantages are right away until you actually get a chance to bond with the guitar for a while. So I think I'm ready to give you my opinion on this, and I'd like to start going over the details on this guitar and break it down for you. So the Squire line, for those of you who don't already know, Squire is the low end of Fender guitars, the budget line that's made overseas. This particular guitar is made in China, and they have other lines like the Affinity line of Squire that is even lower end than this one here, and I think those are made in Indonesia. In any case, a lot of people are hesitant to buy anything made in China these days, and there's good reason for that, because I've heard quite a lot of horror stories in terms of what you get quality-wise. Although, what I've learned over the last little while is that there's quite a varying degree of quality of products coming out of China. If you take Apple, for example, their iPads and iPods are all made in China, and they're probably considered some of the best put together devices out there right now. So it all depends on where they're being manufactured, and what the specs are and what the actual manufacturer, the people having them manufactured, want out of the product, because they're capable of doing some quite amazing things if if they're asked to do so. So getting back to this guitar, I wanted a Telecaster, and I didn't want to spend too much money. I stumbled across this particular guitar, and I really liked it. I played it in the store for a while. It sounded great. It had a great butterscotch finish that I really, really like. I love this, Keith Richards style look of the guitar. And so it caught my eye, and after playing it for a while, I really, really liked it. So let me go over it for you really quickly. The body on this guitar is not a one-ply body. It's actually a few pieces of wood put together, and one way you can really tell is by looking at the butt end of the guitar. It's easier to see. I don't know if you can spot that or not. You can make out the different sections in the wood. When you're looking at it from the front or from the back, depending on whether or not the guitar has grain or not, you might not be able to see the glue joints. They're harder to see if it's well matched. But you can make them out if you pay attention. This one here is quite nicely matched, and because of the grain, it actually hides the glue joints, which is good. That's what I like. I don't like to see mismatched wood of any kind. Because you can see the grain, I really like the fact that the grain is visible through the wood, because I like to be able to see what kind of wood I'm getting. Like, if you don't see if the guitar is painted over, they can put whatever they want under there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the best quality wood. So in this case, the fact that I can see what I'm getting leads me to believe that it's well put together. So The guitar is finished in polyurethane. It's not a nitrocellulose finish like in some higher end guitars. A lot of guitars these days are finished in poly. There are some people that claim to think, or would like to think, that nitrocellulose is a better option. And I mean, it all depends what you're looking for. There are some advantages and disadvantages. The advantages to nitrocellulose is that it's thinner. And a lot of people believe that because it's thinner, it makes the wood more resonant and makes the wood breathe. And there's all kinds of theories out there as to why nitrocellulose would be better. The disadvantages with nitrocellulose is that it's very thin. It could scratch and nick a lot easier. It even wears off if you rub the finish for a while. It'll eventually wear off, and it will also crack if you expose your guitar to sudden changes in temperature, whereas polyurethane doesn't do that. Polyurethane is very resilient. It will chip if you hit it hard enough, but it's easier to maintain, and it's also a little bit harder to scratch. So there's disadvantages and advantages to both. I have no problem with the polyurethane on this lower end guitar, and to me, I mean, it's all a question of what you're using the guitar for. If you're going to be using a guitar and you want to take it with you as a a kick around guitar, for me the polyurethane will work just fine because it's a little bit more resistant. That being said, so the finish on the guitar is flawless. There's no defects at all. There's no little blotches or imperfections that I can see on this particular guitar body. The neck is where I like to pay most of my attention when I'm buying a guitar. I look at to see exactly how the neck is put together, and if there's any space within the neck joint between the neck and the body, and there's absolutely no space in here. I'd be hard pressed to slip a piece of paper in there. I don't think it would even fit. So the neck joint is perfect. There's no gaps, and I've seen some terribly rooted out guitar bodies in my time that have almost like a 1/16 of an inch on both sides, and you really don't want that. None of those issues on this guitar. The body itself has a string through body design, as any typical Telecaster will have. The hardware on this guitar is quite solid. The plated pieces, the tone knobs, and the covers, and the bridge, saddle here, are all made out of very good quality metal. They're pretty thick. I mean, to me, this is thicker than a reissue saddle. It also seems to be made in a different way, because you don't get the rough corners that seem to be made out of bent metal on the reissues. This one is very smooth. There are no little creases. It actually seems to me to be better quality metal on this. The bridge itself is something where people have different opinions. The saddles on this particular bridge have they're basically made out of vintage style brass saddles, and there's only 3. Some people like to have a saddle for every string because they think that it'll allow them to intonate the strings better and have better accuracy on each string. The 3 saddle design, which is more of a vintage thing, you're basically compensating the intonation on 2 strings at the same time, so you might not have as much flexibility if you need it. Out of the box, this guitar didn't need that much setup, and I did intonate it, and it wasn't an issue at all for me. So I like the vintage style saddles. I like that vintage look. But some of you might disagree with me. That's fine. For me, just to let you know, I didn't have any problems with the saddles. Moving on from the saddles, the tone and the volume knob are also solid feeling. They don't have any kind of wobble or shake. They have a resistant feel to them. So when you turn them, they're not like really loose. Like you couldn't spin them around. They actually have quite a bit of resistance to it. and that makes it feel quite solid in your hands. The same goes for the 3-position switch. Very solid. No issues there whatsoever. The pickups on this guitar are Alnico 5s, and I thought that I might have to swap them out. That was just a misconception in my opinion, because I automatically associated, you know, a Chinese guitar to poor quality pickups. But to be honest with you, after playing it for a while, I have no real need to swap them out. They sound really good, and I think I'm just going to keep them in for now. I don't have any issues. They sound pretty good. They're not microphonic at all. To me, they sound just as good as you know, some of the American standard Telecasters. Moving on, the pickguard on this guitar is a 1-ply pickguard. It's got a chamfered edge around it, so it's not a rounded edge as you would find in an American reissue. It just has an angled chamfer to it. The thing that impressed me about this particular pickguard is how thick it is. It's actually probably over an eighth of an inch easily, probably more than that, and seems very solid. I don't think I'll have any issues with this pickguard. It'll probably outlive the guitar for how thick it is. Again, it seems very solid. Moving on, the neck on this guitar is a maple neck. It's not highly figured. There's no real bird's eye figure in it. It's just a good quality piece of maple. The frets on it are medium jumbo frets, so you're going to have frets that are a little bit thicker than on a reissue. I think the reissues, the vintage style frets, are a lot thinner, and I like the medium jumbo size. It feels quite comfortable. I didn't have to adjust the neck at all, really, out of the box, and all I did was lower the height of the strings a little bit, and there's no buzzing on the neck, which, you know, is a pleasant surprise. The other thing I like to look at is how well the frets are finished on the outside and inside edge. And usually when you run your fingers over the frets, you don't want to have any sharp metal pieces, you know, protruding out of the frets. And I don't have anything like that. It's very well done. No issues at all. The markers are just typical black inlays. And one of the things I got to mention on this guitar, because it is polyurethane, that some people feel that the neck is a little sticky because of the polyurethane. I don't really feel that's a big issue. It seems to me to be just as, you know, slippery as you would get on a reissue. I don't really see a lot of difference there. The key, I guess, would be to keep it clean and keep it free of any kind of buildup of residue when you're playing. Other than that, I don't see a big issue. The one thing I did want to mention about this particular neck is that it's a lot thinner than an American reissue. Front to back, it's thinner. Okay, so the American reissue will be fatter, and this is a lot more thin. I like that. For me, I actually like both. I like the thin and the thick neck for different reasons. For me, this one's a lot easier to play because it is thin, but I do like to have a beefier neck from time to time. So I'm kind of wavering between the two. But in terms of playability, the strings are well spaced out. Even for my bigger hands, they don't seem to cause a problem when chording. Very easily accessible to all the strings. The nut was cut quite well, and I didn't have to refile the nut at all. The slots were not overly cut or cut too deep. Everything seems quite well done in that area. And the tuners are vintage style tuners that you would find on most Fender guitars. They work quite well, and they don't have any issues with the slippage at all. So overall, what else can I say about this guitar other than it's a great value? And I would not hesitate at all to pick one up in your local store if you have you know, an idea of trying out a Telecaster and you're not sure if you should drop a lot of money on the purchase. I would strongly recommend you try one of these. You will not be disappointed. At that price point, as I mentioned at the beginning, you really can't go wrong. Very good quality guitar for the money. I did want to mention though that I did look at the rosewood version of the classic Vibe Telecaster with the darker sunburst body and the binding, sort of the Andy Summers style version of this line. I really like that look in the guitar, so I wanted to maybe get one of those as well. And I found that I didn't like the neck as much for some reason. It's not the same profile, and I was a little disappointed because I really wanted to like that particular one, but I prefer the neck on this one much better. To me, a Telecaster is, fits between a Stratocaster and a Les Paul, and you can get some really nice beefy tones out of it. I don't think you're limited in any way. Some people think they are because there's one less pickup than a Stratocaster, but really, if you like that chunky, meaty tone, you can really get it easily out of this Telecaster. So don't hesitate, try it out, and you might be pleasantly surprised, and who knows, you might save yourself a ton of money and consider that you might not actually need the full-blown reissue from Fender, or maybe you can at least work your way up to it eventually. So that's it for my review for now. I'll follow it up with some sound clips, and I'd like to eventually do a side-by-side comparison with this guitar and my American reissue Telecaster. And who knows, if I get some extra time, I might actually do sound samples of both side by side, and you can judge for yourself whether or not there's all that much difference between the tone of this one and the other one, which costs about 4 times as much. So thank you for listening to this review. I appreciate any of your feedback, good or bad. Drop me some comments if you want to ask any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. And I look forward to my next review. Thank you very much.